Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Jack, here to bring you a two-parter video talking about not only Holy Priest rankings, as you clicked on, but also at the end we're going to be starting to discuss some of the changes that Holy Priest has been receiving and what I'd like to see before Shadowlands launches. Alright, so without further ado, let's break down the rankings. For Holy Priest, it's really quite simple, as Boon of the Ascended comes far out and away as the best option for Holy Priests for raids and Mythic Plus. When using this cooldown, it's a 3-minute cooldown, has a cast time as well to be able to cast it, and once you activate it, the Boon of the Ascended cooldown is then replaced by Ascended Nova, and then your Smite is then replaced by an Ascended Blast. The Ascended Blast is like a 3-ish second cooldown. It's a hasted cooldown as well, which deal a big chunk of damage, and then it'll heal one target. The target that it heals will also be receiving Echo of Light healing, which is always really nice. The Ascended Nova is just spammable AoE that'll build stacks for your Eruption. The Ascended Blast builds up 5, the Ascended Nova builds up 1 per target hit, and the Ascended Nova is target capped, but it deals a pretty good chunk of healing. I believe it hits 6 targets, and you'll pretty much just be able to weave between blasts and novas, put out some extra healing, and then the AoE burst out of the Eruption puts out a pretty considerable amount of extra healing onto every ally that they're hitting and splitting the healing out as well. So you can pretty much just time this, and instead of really being a Swiss Army knife, Holy Priest is like one knife that has like 5 or 6 other knives in it as well. They just kind of all do the same thing, but that's okay because Holy Priest likes more throughput. Holy Priest is going to be having Salvation, Divine Hymn, and now Boon of the Ascended to be able to bring to the raid environment, having a lot of different cooldowns to manage, and that's honestly pretty okay because it really makes Holy Priest one of the best attrition healers in the raid right now, which is something that's often very understated. When you get into very long fights where there's constant damage and there's the need to put out pretty steady amounts of throughput, you're able to more heavily lean on raid cooldowns that are high efficiency and high throughput rather than leaning on what I would call like regular healing spells like the chain heals, like the prayer of healings, things like that, which you're going to be steadily, constantly, frequently casting to be able to deal with damage, right? Instead of muscling through it and burning your mana pool down, you're just able to have a massive upswelling of various raid cooldowns to bring to your team, which is very valuable, especially at the beginning of an expansion. So Boon of the Ascended handles that quite well as you go into Mythic Plus. Boon of the Ascended does a very good job of helping out with the Prideful affix, because every 20% of enemy forces that you kill, you spawn a Prideful mob who deals increasing levels of damage until you kill him. So unfortunately, this has best practices when you're stacked up, and some of the mechanics for the Prideful mob really disincentivize you from stacking up. But if you're able to find that kind of like perfect ratio of everywhere to position so nobody cleaves each other, you should be in just fine shape. When it comes to soulbinds, the Kyrian also have a number of really good options for Holy Priest. You'll probably end up taking Pelagos, the first soulbind that you get when you join the Covenant. Once you fully unlock your soulbind tree, he'll probably be the best option. Basically his first ability, whenever you're casting various spells, a different spell, you're going to be getting access to increasing levels of versatility. And then during and after your Boon of the Ascended, you'll drop small orbs, which is also nice because you can cast on the move. You can cast your Nova or Ascended Blast on the move during Boon of the Ascended, and you can pick up these orbs, increasing your mastery. Also, really nice to be able to have access to. But before you've unlocked your full Soulbind tree, you may just go with Clea, who's another Kyrian Soulbind, who has Resonant Accolades, which replicates healing when targets are above 70% HP, and she has very easy access to 3 potency conduits rapidly. So that's just going to help you as well with your unlocks. You have good soulbinds, you're able to unlock conduits really quickly, and you have a strong ability that's flexible for a number of environments and shores up some of your weak spots in Mythic Plus. The next round of Covenants, however, is I kind of struggle to be able to find what's second, third, and fourth because they're all pretty bad for different reasons. Fae Guardians is a 1.5-minute cooldown where you call 3 fairies down to attend to your targets. The Wrathful Fairy is placed on an enemy by using Shadow or Pain. Over a 20-second duration, you must use direct attacks against the target with that fairy on it in order to regen mana. Not too great for a Holy Priest. Possible, but not great. The Guardian Fairy, you can just place onto an ally. It'll start on yourself, but you can place it onto an ally with Powered Shield, and you can set it and forget, no problem. The Benevolent Fairy increases cooldown recovery rate of a major ability. That follows Flash Shield. Now on this one, you can keep it on yourself where it starts and reduce the cooldown of Divine Hymn. You can place it onto an ally and start having it reduce their cooldown, but by and large, this isn't a hugely impactful and helpful type of mechanic because it's only one ability. If it was like Ineffable Truth, where it was all of your abilities, then Holy Priest would probably love this because they would get massive cooldown reduction for their Holy Words, both Serenity, Sanctify, and Salvation, and had a lot greater flexibility and control over how they wanted to use them, giving you good options for raids and M+. But unfortunately, that doesn't exist right now. It's just Divine Hymn, which doesn't do much of any healing in a 5-man environment, and you pretty much just be using it on other people, not really having a benefit for yourself in 5-mans, which you pretty desperately need because Holy Priest's weakest spot is 5-mans. In a raid environment, if you're doing more serious progression rating, you're going to have a set assignment for when your Divine Hymn is going to be going off. So just because you get it off cooldown faster doesn't mean you're using it on cooldown, and you might have to sit on it, which again just completely gets rid of the entire idea of running with this ability. Unfortunate, but Fae Guardians need some extra love for the Holy Priest. Unholy Nova with the Necrolord gives you the Unholy Transfusion, so it pushes out a big burst of dark energy for a 1-minute cooldown, healing 6 allies for about half as much as a heal actually puts out. And then it puts up a pretty hefty dot onto the enemies for 15 seconds. It's lots of damage, but doesn't really result in a lot of extra healing. Your allies who damage that target are healed for 4% of spell power, which is incredibly small. And they also capped out how many heals you're able to receive in any one, like melee strike or any cleave ability, so you're not able to, for example, spam AoE and get a ton of healing back as a result. Not having any atonement interaction really just, kills this for a Holy Priest. And that's also heavily emphasized when it comes to mind games. The final one that we're going to be covering as well, because while it deals a ton of damage and that's really attractive for a Disc Priest because it works with atonement, all you really have to look forward to with this ability as a Holy Priest is the damage reversal. And that damage reversal is usually pretty weak. You're having to sit on it for hyper precise timings to get some decent yield out of it, and on top of that, Holy Priest already deals with incoming raid damage very well, because they have 2, or if you take Kyrian, even 3 large cooldowns, 3 minutes or higher, to be able to properly account for that. If it does reverse damage and healing, you get about a net 2% of your mana back positive. Mind games cost 2% to cast, and your reverse damage and healing can restore up to 4%, so it's a little bit of regen, but really not a serious contender by any means. So, by and large, Holy Priest has, unfortunately, pretty much just one option as it comes down to the spec. Not really giving you a lot of flexibility to go forward into Shadowlands, which is unfortunate, but some of the changes that could come about that would be really helpful would definitely be along the lines of making Fae Guardian something along the lines of an Ineffable Truth, reducing all of your Holy Words, Unholy Nova. I'm not really sure what they could be doing to this ability to buff it for Holy and not Discipline. It might just have to heal like a lot of allies, or it might just have to give you some control over healing a certain amount of allies that could kind of help you in M+. I'm kind of stumped on that one. And mind games, they have to do something with the atonement interaction or something if they wanted to actually make the spell reversal a lot stronger without having it be too crazy broken like it kind of already is for Disc Priests. So part of the problem right now is that Holy Priest, by and large, just doesn't really have a lot of the same resources that Disc does, and the Atonement Synergy is like number 1 onto that list, causing a lot of these different issues. Now let's start talking about some of the changes that we've been seeing, however, for Holy Priest. There have been some talent updates to the tree. There is Renewed Faith replacing Enduring Luminescence. Renewed Faith causes your healing increase by 10% on targets with Renew. You now have Prayer Circle, as Circle of Healing is now a baseline ability. So using Circle of Healing reduces the cast time of your Prayer of Healing by 25% for 8 seconds. And Apotheosis is now resetting the cooldowns of your Holy Word, something we talked about in our last Holy video as well. So, very much gives you an instant oomph at your disposal, and it's really fun to be able to play around, and I enjoyed it a ton in the dungeons that you're just seeing to be able to utilize. But really, the Holy Priest tree is just severely lacking in additional resources. So Renew is actually a pretty decent ability to be able to utilize thanks to Renewed Faith, but Benediction's still really weak, and, well, it's weak enough to the point that you're not going to have this, like, oh my god, amazing synergy that you're going to have. Even if you were using it with, like, Holy Word Salvation, you already pushed a bunch of healing onto targets, applied Renew to all of them, and 2 stacks of Prayer of Mending, and synergizing Salvation and Renewed Faith might be decent for some extra burst, but you're already having such a large cooldown that's able to cover all of your bases. Just taking it for an additional healing during your Salvation window isn't really necessary. It doesn't give you this amazing extra benefit when you could just take more mana, and as long as you're consuming that extra mana, you should be just fine. It's a potential option, but I don't see it panning out super well. Prayer Circle can be very beneficial for helping you line up for like burst windows with saying, okay, there's going to be tons of follow-up damage, so I'll be able to cast many Prayer of Healings in quick succession, but again, you have to be wary of your mana. Part of the benefit there is that it can work with Enlightenment because you already have natural, better mana regen at your disposal. Something worth considering, but like I mentioned, Holy Priest already has an excellent pool of extra resources at its disposal, so it can afford to spam a little bit early on if it really needs to, but you also have to think about the different needs of the raid group and how many raid cooldowns you have access to. Small thing, but important to note, Renew no longer actually puts forth an instant heal. It's actually stronger hot than it was before, but it's a pure hot at the moment. That means that you actually can't, if you have Grievous going out onto your party, you can't be spamming Renew onto everybody to be able to remove the Grievous stacks. You'll actually just be putting it out as a pure hot. Holy Priest, now any direct heals, Grievous will be removed, or remove 1 stack per direct heal. It deals with it decently well, but the Renew change is something that's interesting to be able to note, and it might kind of change some of your decision making a little bit in a 5-man environment. It certainly makes it a lot more viable to be able to utilize Renew, but again, it's not like some overwhelming ability. One of the biggest problems right now is that Holy Priest hasn't really had this overwhelming upswelling of talent development, and that really just makes things a lot harder for the spec as it stands. They don't have a lot of resources to help them out in 5-mans, and especially when it comes to split healing or spread healing in a 5-man environment, which is perfectly encapsulated by the Prideful Affix. Holy Priest struggles massively with the Prideful Affix as it stands right now, especially because people are just spreading out from each other to dodge any of the lasers that other players are tossing out, and you are trying to spam Prayer of Healing, you're trying to get some extra cleave onto people with Sanctify, but when you're only hitting 3 targets with the ability, it starts getting more wasted. When you have Serenity and you have access to Serenity, but after that, not really much in the way of follow-up. You're able to use Apotheosis to reset your Holy Words, but then once you're spamming Flash Heal to try to get further resets, you can burn through mana very rapidly. The Legendaries that you have at your disposal don't really prop up the spec in a 5-man environment because of some of the nerfs that have gone through to good ones, because they were too strong for disc, or because they just weren't really designed to be that powerful. Cauterizing Shadows, for example, whenever you Shadow or Pain a target and it would expire, it would put out a heal that used to be based off of the target's max HP. They nerfed that into a flat amount, and then they made it so that if a target dies with Shadow or Pain on it, it no longer counts as it expiring, so it doesn't actually proc a heal. So Cauterizing Shadows, probably one of the greatest hopes for Holy Priest in a 5-man environment, got obliterated, and the only other options to replace it are absolutely crazy mediocre. Flash Concentration, reducing the cast time and increasing the heal, is just still too underwhelming, too weak, too slow to actually take heavy advantage of, even though it is a steady buff instead of a one-time buff. At this point, Holy Priest very much concerns me because it is such a stagnant healer and hasn't really received a lot of love. And at this point, the clock really is ticking on the spec for it to get these proper changes to further help them to 5-man, make them more appealing for a raid environment, and generally kind of change the game. The spec's not changing a lot, and that's its biggest problem, is it's not growing. And since Legion, since they developed so many different things for the spec at the beginning of Legion, it's just continued to decay and continued to be neglected. And that, as somebody who's played Holy Priest for years now, is just immensely disappointing. Hopefully, we're going to be able to see a little bit more coming around the corner before the new expansion comes out. But the clock is ticking, and if there was a time for you guys to give feedback, now is absolutely the time to start getting on those forums and start talking about it. If you like these videos, be sure to subscribe and check out the Twitch channel as well. We'll be doing all kinds of healer testing for beta going forward. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I hope you all enjoyed it, and I'll catch you all next time.